Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Cummings, CEO and founder of Whole Cyber Human Initiative. Today, I'm with one of our recent graduates from our pipeline, Jeff Fields. Jeff Fields comes from a very, very interesting background, not just from U.S., but on the Israeli side as well. He served as a combat medic on the Israeli Defense Forces. He was also in sports medicine as an athletic trainer. And recently, he just got off of a state level voting IT support role. Without further ado, Jeff, let's start extrapolating some of this background and see if the viewers can start identifying some of these soft skills.
Okay, so I've done a fair amount of things because I've been around for a long time. Started my academic career as a double major in Middle Eastern history and political science at the University of Haifa in Israel. It's Middle East, so wars happen, and sometimes, plans have to change. I went back to the States, did an undergraduate degree in sports medicine, as well as, minoring in history and things of that type. And after that, went back overseas, was in the military for a time, came back to the United States, did a master's degree in sports medicine and sports psychology. So not particularly IT heavy. When I started, we still use a microfiche, so not many people understand that pain. And my master's degree, my research was sports medicine was also sports psychology, and I dealt particularly with the psychology of adherence. So how to get people to do stuff that they may need to do but don't want to do. So that kind of a little bit of social engineering right there, and I have published that research years ago. I worked as an athletic trainer. I worked as a strength coach, and over the year I had my own businesses, and eventually I found my way working for a cybersecurity company, which was a very bizarre, convoluted way I got there. Still not really sure how. I spent time doing employee retention, helping to build a SOC, dealing with law enforcement, ex-military, transitioning military. About 52% of the company was ex-military. And I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool. I feel like an idiot. Like, I was always pretty smart until I got there, and I'm like, I have no idea. These guys are really smart. So the CISO and I got along very well. He's the one who actually hired me. And when I asked him, do you think I could learn this? He goes, absolutely. And so, they had mentors ready for me from Air Force Intel, Army Intel, cyber and whatnot. And then the company changed, and people that I knew left. And I was let go because I was remote. But the experience was remarkable. Okay, so I got a taste of cyber. It was pretty cool. I actually felt proud, which I hadn't felt in a long time. And I haven't felt since, because I felt like I was doing something important. I haven't felt pride since I was in the military, and the other branch, I was in two different branches, but I haven't felt that pride and mission and that feeling. I haven't felt that in years. So fast forward, back in sports medicine, and the pandemic hit. Clinics were shut down, high schools were shut down, colleges were shut down, gyms were shut down, and I took that as a sign. I don't believe in coincidences, and I said, well, maybe it's time to actually move into cyber. I purchased some courses online, pen testing, and I was trying my best to follow, but I didn't really know what was going on. But it still was fascinating to me, and I found out about a boot camp, and I figured.
Well, before we start talking about the boot camp, let's circle back to some of the things that you mentioned, right? So you dual majored
back in the old days, yep.
And then you came back and you got another within sports medicine. So just the sheer amount of open source research you had to do I feel is a very transferable skill because OSINT, which oddly enough is an area that you deeply find appealing.
I love that.
And then, talking about the different branches,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, obviously you went pen test because, that's the sexy word, right? And we know that it's either pen test or SOC analyst.
Mm-hmm.
Um, looking back at how you approached it, do you think it was because you had that mindset already of, hey, I've dealt with bad people before and I know how to think heinous, I know how to think evil, and I feel that I would be a good pen tester. And then couple that with, the role that you got with the cyber firm and the degree that you got as far as persuading people,
Mm-hmm.
right, to do things that they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at that degree alone. I look at roles like GRC when we talk about governance, risk, and compliance.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that sadly a lot of firms are failing at that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the NIST, the new CMMC,
Mm-hmm.
how are they going to implement zero trust, MFA? There's still a lot of companies that haven't even adopted MFA yet.
Right.
Um, talk about some of those soft skills that you learned, and then as we're obviously we're fast forwarding to the boot camps,
Mm-hmm.
plural, our program, the amount of mentorship and networking you've done. Talk about those soft skills that you really started to identify that were like, man, these are very appealing and attractive in the cybersecurity market.
Well, for many, many years, I dealt with people. Okay. I had to talk to them. I had to treat them either if they were injured. I had to coach them to make them better athletes. I would usually be given the patients that no one else wanted to deal with because they were difficult patients, when the issue was not that the patients were difficult. It was just that the let's say the clinician or the coach or whichever setting was in didn't know how to reach that person. So I was able pretty quickly to always, you know, get my point across and get that person to, feel that they made the decision on their own to continue, despite the pain. And sometimes it was actual physical pain because even rehabilitation is uncomfortable. Spending so many years living overseas for so long and studying various languages and being in different cultures and feeling very comfortable with different cultures. So, if I'm dealing with a diverse population that comes with a different belief system, a different spiritual system, a different political system, doesn't matter. I'm usually able to connect with that person because I just find it fascinating. So it's easier for me to talk. So I would always be able to become friendly and get a good rapport with people, and they tended to listen to me. Not so much my kids, but other people tend to listen to me because they see I'm sincere, and I never do anything for a self-serving purpose. It's always to help them, and I can get the job done when it comes to that. So soft skills are how to talk to people, how to listen to people, how to listen, finding that let's say that weak link or that thing that's lacking that you can fill for that person to get them to do what needs to be done. Those are things that have always been easy for me, even as a strength coach or as a therapist. Find what's missing, find what's weak, make it stronger. Everyone's happy. So I've done that all across. I mean, I was a teacher too, as an associate professor. I have an education degree as well. I have a lot of degrees. So it was always about talking to students, whether they be high school students or college students, or putting together symposiums and seminars that I was either a participant in or the lead presenter. So how to get across what you need to get across to the people who, let's say, paid you money to listen to you. So I've done that for years. What's the difference, right? You can do a pen test, or you could see an alert and you could escalate it, but the people in a different department have to buy into what you're saying, right? Because from what I've noticed, it's often we don't need extra cyber until you get breached, and then we got to spend money on cyber. But how do you communicate the needs from a security perspective? Let's say people who look at ROI, they look at capital expenditure, things like that. How do you make it important to them? And you have to be able to speak to them in their language and be a person. And so that's pretty easy for the most part, for me at least. The technical aspects I'm still working on. So yeah,
that's all good. I mean, active communication, deductive reasoning, two-way communication, active
listening.
Putting the person, the client, the customer, the company first. Right? Those are very big. When we talk about how there is that clear divide between IT and cyber. How to really tell those leaders that we're not just an aesthetic value. Because look at 2022, the amount of layoffs, but the amount of budget cuts were just ridiculous. I recently got laid off, and I thought that was going to be cushioned for a long time, but that's the reality. Is if there's no money coming in, I can't keep people around. And I look at that not necessarily as a negative. It can be looked at too as a positive. If you talk about an MSP or MSSP, that has clients that listen to them and they put the appropriate actions in place. Maybe they matured that company enough to where they don't need to pay for MSP services anymore. And now that means that MSP services, they need to find new clients because, man, we worked ourselves out of a job, which is good because this is what we need more of. But at the same time, I don't have the budget to keep that many people around.
I look at also as team cohesion as well. Like one of my functions, for example, for the cyber company was to kind of create another employee retention program. I thought everyone in the company was awesome, and I loved the snack bar was great too. But and they're just good people. So my goal was also to create more cohesion, so people may not want to chase a higher salary, let's say Silicon Valley, but they stayed where this company was because the culture was so good. So whether with the sports team, whether even in the military, that unit cohesion, internal unit cohesion is exceptionally important. It's not just for the outside, it's within that team. And I think, I've mentored people. I mean, you're my mentor, but I've mentored people and I've taught people, and I've, people have come to me for advice when I thought I had advice to give. And I think that's important too. So that's all the soft skills, make people feel appreciated and, acknowledge what they've done. And not everything comes easy to everyone, but, everyone's teachable. So.
And then you talked about how, you had, I'm not going to put, a year behind it or anything like that, but decades of really just stillness, right? Because like you said, you didn't have that sense of purpose. It's funny because, talking to one of our other recent graduates, Stephen Dillard, I mentioned, that sense of purpose and that hero complex. It's I want to defend. And part of that is because, again, you've done it and it was ingrained into your body and your ethos that, we need to treat people fairly and we need to do it right. And then we need to go take care of the people that are doing it wrong or doing people wrong. Now, so you went to 2 boot camps. That's right, everybody. I said 2. The first one you said that you kind of got into was you got basically poached during, hey, I got a COVID discount for this course. Talk about your boot camp experiences.
Yeah, and I'm not sure it was a COVID discount or if it was a discount. It was a discount regardless, and it was literally just at that time. So I'm going to say I went to one boot camp and one program, but because it was a little bit different. But so the boot camp, I asked around, or I asked some person I knew in cyber. He said, "Well, I don't know the company, but it seems okay. It seems like an okay price considering still a lot of money." Guaranteed a job. If not, money back. Okay. With all the job openings, I figured right off the bat, I'm making six figures or close to it. But FYI, I really don't, I'm never driven by money, ever. But I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I get to do important things. So I signed up. It was a relatively reputable boot camp company. It was a 6-month boot camp. It was probably, I spent about, I'm saying 4 hours a day, anywhere from 3 to 4 hours a day on labs and projects and watching the videos. And then bi-weekly, we had a mentor, okay, who was a ex-NSA guy. And since I was on the pen test track, I chose the pen test because that's what I liked. That's what I thought I liked. And obviously pen testing and red teaming are different, but there's some overlap. I took that. Other people took the CISA path. So their projects were different. Their labs were a little different, but the first A+, Net+, Sec+ portion, everyone did the same. I found the best part of it to be the bi-weekly meetings. For me, other people didn't like it because I think, well, maybe they felt it was a waste. But it was long. I think one of my classmates mentioned this because he had come from a tech background. He said, I don't think anyone should take this boot camp unless they already have an A+, because it's just too much, right? So it was, I think I'm grateful that I did it because I knew nothing, right? But I wish I didn't have to spend that much money. I wish I had more. I just wish it was different. Like I said, the labs were okay. They were good in the later stages, but still there was no one there saying, do this now, try this. The finish with it, still no job. Okay. Some of they hooked you up with a career
counselor. When did you graduate from that?
Oh my God, what century is it? It was probably, I started maybe a couple of months after the pandemic started, which was, when was that? I lost my first job in March of 2000, was it 20 or 2019? I don't remember exactly. It's all blurred. But around that time, so I think a couple of months after that, I signed up, and that lasted 6 months.
So it's 2023.
Yeah, so beginning of 23, yeah.
And money back guarantee if you don't get job placed. And you're still paying that back. And it's been 2 years.
Yeah, no job. Yeah. Still no job.
So take that into consideration, right? Because a lot of people are gonna focus on boot camps for that sheer fact that you just said, right?
Yeah.
That car salesman, you're gonna get this and it's gonna be beautiful, and then you drive it off the lot and the wheel falls off. In this case, you graduate. They may have did a career camp and had some people come in, no job placement. 2 years now, still no job, and there is no, where's my money back?
Yeah, I'm running out of my multi-million-dollar trust fund. It's dwindling. So I mean, I spoke to a career person. We could help you, but nothing. And they were sincere, I'm sure, but still there was really nothing. Then one of my classmates found out about another program through the state that the training that he took, and I took the same training, just different semester, was again A plus, Net plus, Security plus. So I had my A plus by then. I might have had my Net plus by then. That I paid for all of it, and so it was A plus, Net plus, Security plus, AWS, Azure, CCNA. Okay, so there was another 6 months of actual class time, but again, it's still a pandemic. I'm in West Palm. The school there's an office in Fort Lauderdale and Miami, which is kind of far for me to drive. So we did an online Zoom, and it was 4 days a week for 4 hours, and the 5th day was supposed to be self-study. It was supposed to be 5 days, but they let us with 4 days. There's a lot of study, a lot of labs. But of course, Security Plus is not a hands-on certification. It's just how much can you remember. AWS was all hands-on, Azure all hands-on, CCNA all hands-on, doing all that stuff on the command line. Perhaps still have to sit for that exam. But so it was good. Teachers were good. And that course ran that particular program, and I think there were more hacking programs, stuff like that. Mine was about $16,000 or $17,000. However, I got a grant from the state because I was unemployed, and they still had, that was still in place, because remember, it was a very different time in the world. So I was grateful and lucky, and to be able to take that course for free. Now, also job placement, and they were pretty serious about helping, but all the jobs were like an hour and a half away from me, and they're all like IT support. So not exactly cyber, but I didn't go there to study cyber. It was more for security, but not the same as cyber. But again, nothing. And they cared. They wanted to know. They wanted to make sure I was okay. And I thought I had all these things lined up that fell through last minute. But again, here we are. So yeah, there's no guarantee. I had a few friends who found jobs on their own.
I've talked to people that they went out and paid for SANS and still can't get something. A lot of that it's a lot of the marketing aspect of the person, right? Really fine tuning those roles specifically, right? And I think that was one of our real interactions when we first met, probably a little over 2 years ago, before even whole cyber was even a thought.
That's right.
And we originally met through you showed up to one of my veterans breaking into IT and cybersecurity mentorship events, and we chatted offline, and I was like, hey, you need to check out the System Nice framework. And because there's so many roles other than the one that you're targeted focus on, that you're getting met with, you don't have any hands-on fluencies and stuff like that. However, I mean, obviously you did, the explanation I got from you about the pen test or the ethical hacker route for the first boot camp was phenomenal. You got giddy because, you did manage to get root.
As I told you, I telnetted once, and I was like, oh my God, because I didn't know what telnet was. And I was like, command line telnet, and I'm in. But yeah, I got root. I was like a little, I'm glad you weren't there to see my reaction.
But there was something that you mentioned about that boot camp that really, because everybody knows I'm very vocal that I don't promote, I don't necessarily support, don't necessarily disagree with them, more so on the disagree, as far as how they approach students, and they just want the money aspect. But one of the things that you mentioned that really stood out was, in this course, you actually got challenged to write your findings report.
Oh yeah, and I had to present it to my professor too.
So that is, I've talked to a lot of candidates. I've talked to a lot of mentees that all went through various other boot, and it was all, here's how to take the test. Here's how to take the test.
Oh
Here's
no.
how to take the
Yeah.
test. And as you were looking at these roles, it was again before whole cyber human initiative. You were like, I really like this OSINT thing. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting. And you watched a couple videos, and I was like, hey, why don't you join this capture the flag with me? And we did the trace labs. Granted, I mean, all the busybody capture the flaggers were already taken, so you and I did voting or judging.
We were judges, which is pretty cool.
And you started seeing how some of these ticklers were coming in, as they were submitting their evidence and stuff like that. And one of the things, because we were communicating during the event and everything, and I kept calling back to the fact that, hey, think of it military style, right? What kind of evidence do you want your team to get you to help feed this local law enforcement to find this missing person? Because that's one of the greatest things about trace labs. They're open. It's crowdsourcing OSINT professionals to help missing persons.
Oh yeah, I love that platform. Yeah.
You signed up. Got you to VM. You played around with it. It's kind of weird though, because I think they didn't really give you the access to the training until after the event was over.
Right. Yeah.
You're talking about how that training was, more geared to your mind, your lifestyle of how you like to, again, going back to the defender complex, right? Or the hero complex. Fast forward into October 2021. We've been talking. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm starting a nonprofit. Granted, you were still doing your second boot camp.
Yeah, I was still in the cloud network security administrator. Like, oh, sure, Paul.
So talk about that, for a bit. So obviously back then, obviously it's evolved over time, right? I was on Google Forms first, switched over to Microsoft Forms. We had that whole debacle where freaking the Google Form and the Microsoft Form didn't want to merge because they took that integration out when they were complaining about the Gov Cloud stuff, and they lost their integration abilities. And then obviously Wix, it started doing they started having website maintenance, and none of this stuff was really getting out there. But I mean, you stuck through since ground level, just like Stephen Dillard, right?
I might have been the very first person to start it.
It's very, very possible.
But it's not the first person to finish. What?
It's between you and Nick Perkle.
Yes, we were.
Right, and I'm looking at it like, we designed a program. Obviously, it could be done in just over 100 hours, or how we set it up now with 100 days. But we designed it around the human, right? Because we know life happens. Excuse my French listeners, but shit happens. Let's talk about your experiences from the start. Right. So I approached you, took my gloves off, to stopped holding the hands, and said, hey, you're going to get immersed into this. You started interacting with a few of the directors right off the bat. Let's talk about that, adding the human back into it.
So with the people that I spoke to from your board of directors, so way back in the old days, when I did the first one of your Veterans of Cybersecurity webinars, I kept my mouth shut. I was like a deer in headlights. I was afraid to say anything. Plus, I was not in the American military. I don't want to say the wrong thing. The second one, I talked a lot. Surprise, right? I cracked a lot of jokes. And then I started getting hit up like messaging from Leah, from Chris, and then I think I won his book, which I never won anything. So I start to interact with them, and both of them, you know, more than once, I would have Zoom interactions with them, you know, little guidance, send a couple of potential jobs my way, but I don't think I was really at that level yet. The fact that I could, and Leah and I actually worked at the same company, just not at the same time. So it's cyber company. So, you know, that was helpful. The fact that I could bother you, helpful. I'm surprised you still talk to me. But I mean, the human aspect is that I didn't understand in the beginning, whole cyber human initiative. I thought, oh, it's a really long name for a website, you know, but it's actually, it's accurate marketing. It's accurate branding, because, you know, it really did expose me and others like me to the more of the whole concept of cyber, because cyber is a lot more than sitting in front of us. Well, I won't say everyone sits in front of a screen, but it's a lot more than pen testing or SOC analysts watching a scene, right? There's a lot of roles, and I had no clue. Now, I still like the concept of pen testing and red teaming, because I like the OSINT, I like, you know, the recon part, I like the social engineering part. I allegedly might like breaking into things. I will not admit that, but like I want to be able to get the bad guy. It's really important, right? So that exposed me to, oh, what's threat hunting? Wait, what's threat intelligence? Well, I know what that is, but cyber threat intelligence is a little different, right? But not much, quite frankly, in my view. And it's like there's so many things, investigations and malware, you know, reverse engineering and malware analysis, and, you know, there's a lot. It was like overload for me. But I also, personally, I love information. So I'm a little obnoxious sometimes, because I ask too many questions sometimes because I'm interested, and I need to know everything. Doesn't mean I really will know it or I'll understand it, but I just need that information so I could go the right route. So that's what I noticed in the program, and the fact that I didn't have to start anywhere specific. I was able to start on things that were a little more on the review side for me, but since I was not an expert, review is good. Repetition and practice is what makes a difference. There really wasn't one platform I didn't enjoy. A couple didn't like me so much, but I was able to work through it, and they changed a little bit. But everything was fascinating to me, and everything was relevant. A lot of hands-on. And if I didn't understand something, you know, I went on the Discord channel. I texted you in LinkedIn, help me. I went on Reddit. I watched videos on YouTube. Because I had time, because unemployment, right? And it's just an old habit. Like, I used to read books on terrorist groups when I was a teenager, because that's what I did, right? You know, studying, I went to, like I said, University of Haifa. And what I studied, I didn't study in English. I studied in Hebrew and Arabic. So I would have to read extra books if I didn't get something. I'd have to go the extra mile when everyone else would just say, yeah, I get it. You know, so I'm used to doing that. You know, I've published research, my own. I worked on a person's PhD as an advisor and editor. So I like nuance, and I like the more intel, the better. So all the different platforms that your program, your pipeline offered me, were all great. Obviously, you know the ones I like the most. We'll talk about that. But
well, let's talk about the one you like the most, because it's the one you spent the most time in.
I think I did. Well, okay, carry on.
We only required, 3 specific courses from Attack IQ.
Oh, really?
And here it is. I'm looking on LinkedIn and I'm like, I'm tallying them up. I'm like, damn it, Jeff. You're in 9 courses right now, or you
Yeah, I did
completed
9. Yeah,
9
that's true.
courses. That could have been time that you could have knocked out the rest of this.
I didn't really realize they were fun.
Yeah, the Attack IQ is very addictive,
Yeah.
very addictive, and it's relevant,
Yeah.
right? Because one of the things that you brought up was you've heard the term MITRE, but you'd never seen how it was practically applied.
Yeah. I didn't realize you could even go on and look at it. I mean, obviously I know that now, but yeah, yeah. Then I get exposed to that. TTPs and whatnot. Yeah.
One of the other things that really stood out too, as we started going through a lot of the core courses that we kind of pushed towards those that have never been in tech. Obviously, again, you were refreshing or doing refreshers with it, but you know you yourself said that you wished you would have had that well before you started the first boot camp, because you could have saved yourself a lot of money on those certs that may or may not be benefit, may or may not have return on investment. It's been 2 years, so is there an ROI really? I'm just going to point
Yeah.
that out, listeners, right?
Yeah.
Um,
So
now,
continue. Yeah, yeah. I'm
do you,
sorry.
do you think that so the soul searching aspect, right, in part one, um, we said 3 to 5 roles. You had about 6 on there, which is fine. Partly because there is these aspects that you didn't know about, and you're like, man, I've done a lot of things that revolve around these roles. Now that you graduated from our program, going back and looking before you started the first boot camp, would you have wished that we existed back then?
No, yeah, I can. Not that I'm trying to kiss up at all, but I could say honestly, yeah, without a doubt. Because listen, the first boot camp, I still had to pay for my certifications, right? And I tend to fail the first one, pass the second one, so it adds up. Um, the 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 foundational courses leading up to the penetration testing, and I also did a CH course as part of my thing in the same boot camp. The I think the courses in the pipeline would have saved me time and saved me a lot of money, and also given me a lot more exposure to so many other things. Now, maybe I don't think you have like A+ stuff in the pipeline, but you definitely have networking, and you have basic Bash and Linux, command shell, whatever, all the command line stuff. So yeah, I think it would have been really, really helpful to me. Yeah, you couldn't start it earlier, but yeah, no. Listen, I think I don't believe that. I don't really believe in pure coincidence, and that even bad things happen, and they can lead to better things. I say that after 2.5 years of not working, but had I not done the original boot camp, I wouldn't have known anything, right? However, I would have really, really, really benefited from having that pipeline in front of me before, without a doubt, like without a doubt. Now, later on I had issues with some of my malware analysis and some of my threat hunting. There's little things I was missing. The fact that I did other things for that year, or at least gave me a foundation. I knew how to look other places and understand it. But without a doubt, 1,000%, definitely this pipeline would have made me much happier. It would have been so much better to start at first, and the price was pretty good. free is a good price, considering that, considering that the amount of information is I don't know if you can put a price on it, if that makes sense. So this is awesome.
Do you think the approach we did where, we exposed you to the systemized framework and said, hey, break down these roles and really get really deep into them, look at the knowledge, the skills, the tasks, and the abilities that are required for them. Do you think that was a part that really honed in and said, you know what, I narrowed down these 6 roles into a few?
Yeah.
It's like Steven, right? He was like saying that, I got to look back at the video again because I can't remember exactly what he said, but again, it played to the human factor. Hey, I know that this would be something that I would thoroughly enjoy. And you did that with threat, right? So we go back to threat, but obviously OSINT has been like on the top of your tongue, OSINT, I like this. And a part of that, again, goes back to dual major on your first degree, and then you got another degree, and that was it. Copious amounts of research. One of the things that we didn't touch base on though was language analysis, right? When you look at different type of SIEM tools that you played around with a couple of them through one of our training offerings, some of those vendors, more often than none, they look for analysts that know different languages. And I don't think you realize that until probably about midway. I think midway is when you're ready to cash in your cert vouchers because they're getting ready to expire, and we're like, hey, take a pause, focus on your cert stuff. Obviously, when you came back to the training, because of different offerings, they rotated content. You're like, okay,
what just happened?
This isn't where I was started or where I left off at. And then, you were one of the things that I think you mentioned that you found curious was the ICS stuff.
Oh God.
Granted, you said that, some of the instructors in CISA, a lot of the candidates agree with it now. A lot of the people that are going through some of the different transition classes, they can say it too. But some of those courses need to be revitalized because some of the speakers can put you to sleep.
Yeah, but I still enjoyed them. They still made me more paranoid
because you translated some of that stuff, right? Looking at sports medicine on the field. I mean, medicine in general. That's a critical infrastructure, and it's the amount of HIPAA and PII information that you were privileged to, that you knew how to secure, and
PII, PHI, all that stuff.
So a lot of it started to sink in towards the middle, and that's when we started to really notice that you were really starting to dig into the training more, and you went from doing the Instagram, here's my badge for completing stuff, to, hey, here's what I learned in this. And if you are a job seeker looking for this type of role, you might want to check this out. And that's what we loved about it, because you started learning in public, right? And you started gaining a following. A few companies, they started, or at least a few people working at companies started connecting with you and sending connection requests. So you started to build that meaningful network based around the roles that you were really in tune with. Now, thinking of us as a primer, would you feel that, obviously there's no way I can condense 100 hours anymore, right? But obviously the core component being the part 1 with the soul searching, the cyber aptitude test that you took,
which I think I do better on now.
But that's the purpose, right? That is totally the purpose. You want to get where you're at now so you can see where your growing pains are. You know, and if I'm looking at somebody that wants to do, you know, programming but their math skills suck because the aptitude test says they're, you know, below par.
Why are you looking at me when you say that? It's true though.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, they do have apps with Atticus. I mean,
Listen, in my day, we had a chisel and a piece of slate, and that's how we did it.
my first tablet was a piece of rock.
It was. Listen, they don't crash unless you drop them.
When we hacked somebody and broke into somebody's system, it was a rock through a window.
Listen, simpler times, better times.
Back then. That's right. You ran your dinosaur through the wall.
I miss him.
But yeah, it's funny because we watched you evolve, and you know, thinking about all the initial jobs that you shied away from, you know, as we were networking originally and stuff like that. A lot of that is, you know, looking at the self-imposed imposter syndrome that is within cybersecurity, right? And it is because it's a resource overload. It's a resource pit.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not learning daily, you're going to get left behind. You know, that's really the clear difference between IT and cyber. You know, I can go do computer repair, IT help desk and stuff like that because I know that I have this operating system and its Active Directory or the server until it's SDLC lifecycle, or, you know, it's shelf life. So, you know, looking at that. And then one of the things too that I don't think that we talked about as far as the roles was project, product, and project management, right? Because in the military, you were a project officer, right? You're going to deploy, you're going in theater, you have to get everybody ready. How do you do that? You start your checklist. Hey, you need your XYZ vaccination. Hey, you need to come do a physical. Hey, you need to do this. Hey, I need you to come see me because you say you have, you know, this allergy or that allergy, or you need this medicine. So there's a lot of project management forecasting what that operation is going to need. And that same type of project management style and forecasting is used in cyber as well, because, you know, looking at some of the companies, you know, sadly, way too many, they see the new shiny toy or tool or software and they want to buy it for, you know, super stupid amounts of money. And now they don't have people that can use it because they didn't forecast it.
Right.
Or you look at some of the people that, you know, are working within software engineering and software development. You know, if you didn't forecast, if you didn't do your research, you could have released a product that as soon as it hits, Microsoft is going to have, you know, a 0 day or a hole or something like that, because it might have already been antiquated by then. You know, depending on how quick or how big that project was. You know, so that's something else I'd like to keep, you know, you to keep in the back of your mind is the amount of project management experience you have without even having, you know, a PMP, a CAPM, or any kind of cert like that. Yeah, let's talk about some of the humbleness that you met within the training core or the core of the training. You know, you talk about how some of them didn't like you, you know, and part of that is, you know, I mentioned it in the Discord too, because there's a lot of people having issues with certain things, right? And that's on the company, right? The training vendor. Hey, you know, because I gave you, you know, contact to one of them, reached out, and then bam, hey, you know, my stuff works now. But looking at it, when somebody creates content, if they don't have an algorithm built of acceptable answers, they might be looking for this one specific answer. And as you figured out, working with other people in the Discord server, going through some of the more advanced stuff, everybody cybers differently. You may start over here, somebody may start over here, but at the end of the day, it's the same answer. Do you think that's an aspect of when we talk about the amount of diversity we need in cybersecurity?
Yeah, I mean, you mean from a filling job roles from the people aspect? Yeah. So, everyone learns differently. Everyone is different in some aspects. People view things differently. There's different types of intelligences, right? That's why the IQ test isn't really a complete test, because that's verbal and math, right? But there's people have kinesthetic awareness. People have there's so many aspects to learning and how you present things. So diversity is important, because even when you look at what's like the agile software development, right? It could be someone looking over your shoulder. What does this look like? Let's get it out there fast. But you could have someone else with fresh eyes looking at your work. Okay, you missed that. So I think that's when you need a diverse team. I know that just like the people who finish this pipeline in 30 days, I automatically hate them, because sometimes I had 15-minute labs that took me 3 hours to complete, because no matter what answer I put in, it wasn't good. But because I'm very stubborn and I wasn't going to give up and I wasn't going to let you down, I wasn't going to let myself down, I just kept going, plugging ahead and keep researching and finding where can I find that answer. So I think, for something like cyber, just like my old profession wasn't a job. You had to live it. It was constantly learning things, constantly dealing with things, constant innovations, right? And long hours and low pay. You had to want to be there. So I think in this field, you definitely need people who are not going to quit after 5 times or 6 times or 7 times, right? I mean, when I say it took me 3 hours to do a 15-minute lab, I am not exaggerating, but I got them done.
No, but we can talk about that lab.
Not all the labs, just a couple.
I have 6 snort books, and I went right to a snort book for one of the labs that you had, and I was like, hey, put this in. It didn't work. I was like, this is straight from them.
Yeah.
And we found out that they wanted a space or what, I can't remember what it was.
Oh my God, it's one dash that didn't have to be there. One dash.
Stephen
I can't tell you
had
how many times we went over that.
He had the same issue on that one.
Yeah.
And I think he was the one that actually put in the in chat, hey, use this and then take this out.
Yeah. Who was that? I was talking when you were saying that. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then it's funny too, because we talk about that second set of eyes, and I kind of leaned on you with your academia background, and it's like, hey, how does this look? Does it, because again, we talk about communication, and how something is conveyed might come off something totally different to somebody. So, obviously my first couple bouts of the program, it came off brutish, right? We're not going to hold your hands, right? Because it is that, hey, you need to get in here and practice it. And then you just mentioned, right, this is a lifestyle. It's why we call it cybersecurity practitioner, because you are practicing it. So, I want to say thank you, because you helped with a lot of process improvement. You definitely helped with a lot of, hey, use this word instead of that word, because it might come off in a negative way to somebody, and this, that, and the other. But, looking back at it as well, we had a lot of people that I'm glad they went through us first, because as soon as part 1 was over, they're like, hey, I didn't know it was going to be this much. I didn't know that I was going to have to learn every single day and keep up with this and research that. And we helped them. right? So they found out that, hey, you know what? I'm going to go do IT. Y'all have cyber, you have my blessing, but the cyber side wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And thinking about that, how many of those people? It goes back to having us as a primer before you went to your boot camps.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we did have that back then, right? The mere, I'm not gonna say the mere, the sheer concept of whole cyber really came about after I started seeing some of the mentees running into those brick walls, and that veteran that was poached for a 15% income share agreement, another person that was poached that got an 8-day accelerated 3 cert camp for like 12 grand.
Mm.
Because originally we want to start a steering committee, and that's why the people that are on the advisory board was developed. We wanted to be that olive branch to reach out to folks and say, hey, really though, does that make sense? And then I posted recently the video about the pole turtle. I finally had a couple people reach out to me, and I was like, you didn't Google, right? You didn't Google pole turtle of what the meaning was. But that's essentially what you got handed to you. You got put on a pole through the first boot camp. Hey, you're going to get these certs and you're going to get a guaranteed job. So someone picked you up, elevated you, and left you there, right? And then somebody like me was, walking through, the ranch that is LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, why are you up here? Let's circle back and pitch you back on ground level.
Yeah.
Because it is about that human factor.
Yeah, and I want to, don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to, I've told you this, I'm sure, but if anyone watches this video sometime, I was directed, my LinkedIn, which I had not been on in years for personal reasons, was all about sports medicine people, like athletic trainers and physical therapists and strength coaches. That's all I had. Now, I think I have more cyber people all over the world as my connections. Now, I was directed to you by another connection who was a CISSP, and he's just a great guy, Greg. And he said, "Oh, talk to Paul because he tries to help veterans." I said, "Yeah, but I wasn't an American veteran." Oh, just so I gave you my whole sad sob story, and you said, "No, we'll help you." I'm like, "Really?" So I appreciated that, and that was my first kind of like helping hand, because the CISO that I was close to, he's got a big job. He's busy. I don't expect him to drop everything to, oh, this is what you have to do. I mean, he helped me in the beginning, and I'm grateful for his friendship. But you were always there and didn't care that, I'm an American, I'm a dual citizen, but that I wasn't in the American military. My father was, or my uncles were, my cousins were, but I wasn't. And you were always there to help me. So had that connection not have been made, I would have been floundering. So I appreciate that very much. But yeah, I mean, it's I think the pipeline needs to be out there. I think that these job descriptions, like, you literally need to have 5 years experience for entry level, and you have to be an expert in every technology, and it's like I look at these job apps and I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know that, but I could learn it if you teach me, if you give me a chance. But and that has to be a paradigm shift, right? We spoke about it. You're here to shift that paradigm, how companies look at people like me, and there's many people like me, whether they're out of the military or they're transitioning to another field. They bring skills that, I mean, nothing against being 21 and out of college. I would love to be 21 out of college, but we bring life experience, and how to deal with stress and how to solve problems, most of the problems that I got to solve when people were screaming at me or when there were bombs exploding. You get focused. You know what I mean? Well, I know you know what I mean. So I think that's important, and I think this is a good meeting place. It's a good foundation for changing those things. So that's my opinion, whatever it's worth.
So we know the next question is going to be based upon your graduation. Obviously, we're going to get you a letter, a recommendation. It's going to be signed by the directors here.
Oh, that's cool.
As soon as I find the draft, and so I don't have to rewrite everything.
Mm-hmm.
I started it way back, and then work happened, life happened, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Because I still owe Forrest, I still owe Gregor, and the other graduates the same thing. When I first started, we were going to have a badge. Badge fell through because being an unfunded nonprofit, can't really pay for a badging service.
Mm-hmm.
But a letter of recommendation, I think, with 4 people on signing on the same paper, with close to 60 years combined experience in this sector, I think it'd be a win, right? Because every online application has that, optional additional information, whether it's cover letter or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But we talked about, ahead of time, hey, what do you want in return? I say that as far as you get your choice of, a swag item, coffee, GRC masterclass, or a voucher for the world of haiku. One of the people that I got you in contact with a while back, Jeff White over at Valor,
mm-hmm.
Already persuaded you enough to where you already did the GRC masterclass,
which is pretty cool. Did not think I'd enjoy it, actually.
But Jerry is a very good instructor.
Yeah,
very good.
Mm-hmm.
And as everybody I talked to that has been in the ISSO, ISSM type DoD roles was like, to have somebody that got as close as they could for hands-on GRC, that was phenomenal. So I love it. So you're left with the choices of a swag item or the world of haiku.
Okay. Well, one day when I get a job, I will buy the swag item. I just bought coffee. So I looked at the world of haiku because first I thought it was just Japanese poetry. I mean, I'm not trying to be cute. I didn't know, like, what do you mean? And it looks really cool. And, to practice Linux skills and breaking into things, and because I watch Jerry Auger's YouTube, stream, not the streaming, but afterwards, and how it gives you suggestions. Oh, you missed that, or I think that'd be very, very cool. So, if I could.
That's exciting because this is now you're the fourth candidate in a row that I've interviewed for the exit interview of Whole Cyber to choose the world of haiku.
Really? I guess because it's new, right? It's cool, and I already did the GRC. But yeah, it's a very interesting. And is it a veteran-owned company?
It is. It was created by a retired Navy SEAL.
Yeah, another Navy guy.
Hey, we're leading the way when it comes to workforce development. What can I say?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I'm sorry. And you have cool, and you have nicer uniforms. So yeah.
Wait, you don't like the Space Moon outfits?
Oh, I know. Mine were green.
Or the Tiger Flage that Air Force.
I do like that actually. But you got the dress whites. Even Israeli Navy's dress white. Right. So I came to keep things clean. So yeah, I mean, I think it's very fascinating, and the fact that it, like, I research people. So when I looked into who founded it and stuff like that. So yeah, it's very cool.
So the world of haiku it is, and Eric's going to be excited as well because I just actually messaged him last night about Steven selecting it as well. And then there's also something that may or may not be, we were not going to knock on wood. We're not going to cross our fingers or anything because grants and grant contracts are very competitive. But there is a workforce development grant for K to 12 on workforce development. And I kind of pinged him and said, hey, would this be something that our two organizations could, a for-profit and nonprofit, link up to tackle this and start getting some of these youth that are in tune with video gaming, and because gamified learning is not for everybody, right? But getting in front of some of these kids at a grant price versus them going out and buying it. So I'll get you to your haiku voucher over shortly.
Appreciate it. And you don't have to download anything onto your computer.
No.
It's good, because otherwise my computer will explode.
No, you can do it through the web browser. They do have a Steam powered game version of it. So if you wanted to, do a Steam game, you could. But then you have to install Steam.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I've never really played a video game, a real one. Not really. I mean, little ones with when my son was younger, but like he plays all of them. I think the last one I played, what was it, with Pong? The thing. That was new when I was a kid, seriously. So I know the graphics nowadays is a phenomenal, but I've never been a gamer, so it's actually kind of exciting because I peeked into their thing. Awesome.
So lead us out. What are your plans now? What roles are you targeting specifically? So, for the recruiters, hiring managers, and leaders from organizations that follow us, may be able to extend that olive branch. And what would you tell yourself now if you can go back to your first inclination that you wanted to do cyber?
So what I would tell myself that I think I did make the right decision, because after 30 years of a field that I was considered an expert in, relatively speaking, to be a beginner, not knowing much of anything, because obviously the field is a very deep field. And I still think it's the right choice because I get to when in the end, when things work out, I'll still get to help people. I'll still get to protect people. If I'm doing work with OSINT or, missing persons or, the dark side of human trafficking or threat intel, whatever it happens to be, I'm going to be helping people. And that's what I've always done. And for me, because I did not do as much in the military as was my career path for a variety of reasons, bureaucracy and war and whatnot, this is a chance to kind of make up for that in a way, because I'm all about service. That's what's important to me. I mean, I forget about my issues. If I'm helping others, I'm happy. Now, as far as the roles I'm looking for, I've been putting OSINT on the side because I'm doing so many other things, but that's what I want to go back into, like, more tools and redo the courses I've done. And, I have so many groups I'm part of on LinkedIn that are all involved around OSINT and, extremists. I would love to be like, researching and hunting down extremist groups, because that's kind of what I kind of in a way used to do. I think that those roles and threat intel roles seem to not be entry level, so to speak. So often I'm ignored. I think my pen testing is not expert level. It can be, it will be, but it's not. Red team on the physical side, I'd be fine. But again, they're not looking at people like me. So right now I'm sending most of my applications are for SOC analyst, junior SOC analyst, although I'm not sure how long I'd like to be a SOC analyst, but again, I've never been a SOC analyst. You know, I like to be part of a team. I would like to one day think I can be, you know, researching bad guys, APTs, correlating things, you know, what's going on in the Middle East, because my old neighborhood and whatnot, or, you know, doing OSINT investigations or recon for people. But right now, unless I see other potential jobs opening in those areas, I'm mostly sending out for that, and I'm even setting up for help desk. You know, so that's where my ideal would be. What we spoke about, but you know, we have to be realistic.
Now let's recap what certs you currently hold.
So the certs I currently hold aren't that many of the major certs. There's A+, Net+, and Security Plus. I have the GRC, of course. I have all the CISA ones on the platform. I have the 9 micro certs from MITRE. I really didn't realize I'd only stop at 3. It seemed silly, so I kept going. I mean, honestly, I liked it. You know, I did the range 4s, I did immersive labs, I did SANS, cyber races, did all of that. I have an AWS cert. Finally, just deciding to sit for my Azure 104, and I'll probably start studying for my CCNA, which I should have done last year. And yeah, I'd like to take more, but I can't really afford them right now. But so that's what I have. So on my LinkedIn, I think I have like 40 something certs, but that includes my other sports medicine licenses and stuff like that. Just a couple of those, but I got a lot from your pipeline, and then the few CompTIAs and the AWS. So yeah.
So for the listeners that may be looking at maybe this is their first time hearing about cybersecurity or wanted to jump in feet first, what advice would you give them?
Okay. So I think the same advice for the most part that I would give to anyone starting a new field. Okay. You know, research the field and see if that's what speaks to you. Okay. Know that they're just like medicine. There's not just one aspect, right? Just like military, it's not just army. And even within the army, there's 1,000 things you could do. It's no different. So understand that it's a much bigger profession, a much deeper profession than they may realize. It's not just one thing. Be prepared to fail and not care, right? Be prepared to, you know, work through setbacks, you know, ask for help. I was actually, despite answers that I saw on, what was it, Stack Overflow or whatever, where people could be kind of rude and say, just Google it, right? But everyone has been so nice in cyber. Like everyone's willing to help. So ask for help. Know that you're not going to get it the first time. I mean, and my belief system is that every expert started as a beginner, right? So every beginner, given time, can become an expert. You just have to know what you want and enjoy it, and know that if you're doing things, I think if you're doing things just for money, I think that's a little tainted. I think for me at least, I think if you look at things doing for the greater good, which is literally what cyber is about. Yes, we're protecting businesses and whatnot, but it's more than that. Like, this is, I mean, for God's sake, critical infrastructure being attacked. You know, look at 2014 in Ukraine. Look at what's happening now. I mean, this is defending a country. This is defending a lot more than what people might think. So this is a big deal. At least to me, it is. So You know, they have a chance to be part of something bigger than themselves, and just be prepared to work, be prepared to learn, and don't be so, you know, ego-based that you think, oh, I know it all. Because the minute you think you know it all, you don't know anything. Like, you have to be prepared to learn. So, and that goes for every field. So that's my, it's a never-ending journey of learning and integrating knowledge and passing on the knowledge. And you may find that one thing you think you love, and then you find something else that's even better for you. You just have to be open-minded. That's my feeling. And know why you're getting involved. Know why you're getting into it. Like, I know why I got into it. I'm trying to get into it. So that's, to me, that was easy. That's it.